Hello, I'm Adam Davis and benvenuto a Roma. Welcome to Rome.
According to legend, Rome was founded in 753 BC by Romulus, son of the Roman god of war Mars, supposedly abandoned along with his brother Remus on the river Tiber as a baby. They were then rescued and nursed back to health by an Italian she-wolf. It's your classic god baby wolf tits origin story. But despite this wholesome upbringing, Romulus would grow up to quarrel and eventually kill his brother, which is why Rome is called Rome and not Rome. The ancient city has a history spanning 28 centuries over 3 continents, remaining a major human settlement for almost 3 millennia. And though the grandeur of its age of emperors, an empire that once ruled over 100 million people, has now fallen to the hands of time, what remains is a permanent impression of its past, like a badly traced sketch of a masterpiece done by a drunk child with a crayon and a bad hand. Rome is not what it once was. It has been known as the Eternal City for thousands of years, and its ruins show the reality of such a name. It's absolutely knackered. But the cradle of Western civilization has made it proudly to the 21st century as something new and uniquely beautiful. And finally, after all, it gets to meet me, that guy that I am, as if it hasn't been through enough already. And as you roam around Rome, it's like being lost in a maze of history, a city with barely enough room for itself. And though we will take a tour through the 7 hills of Rome to places like the Colosseum, the original blueprint for your modern stadium, the Vatican, the world's smallest country, the Pantheon and many more, definitely seems like Rome has so much to offer that you couldn't cover it in a million lifetimes. And I've got other stuff to do, so let's get started, alright?
I think a great place to start our tour of Rome is in the historic centre of Rome, the Piazza Navona. It's been here since the 15th century and it's absolutely breathtaking. It has this amazing fountain in the middle, and we'll take a look at some of the statues now.
It was an important source of water for the locals in the centuries before plumbing, or even before Mario even suggested the idea. But it's more than a fancy cap. The gods set in stone around it each depict a river from the 4 continents through which the papal authority has spread. It's made me wonder what kind of things I can start bragging about with my taps. The piazza itself was built on the site of the Stadium Domitian. Originally built in 86 AD, it was Rome's first permanent venue for competitive athletics. It seated around 15 to 20,000.
Howdy, partner. We're now a short walk away at the Pantheon, which is an ancient pagan temple with these 16 massive columns that were apparently transported directly from Egypt, and they each weigh 60 tons. It's pretty impressive to see.
It's one of the best preserved ancient buildings, and it hasn't been pickled. I know you. It's actually because it's been in continuous use since its creation. However, it's actually the Pantheon Mark II. The first was built between 27 and 14 BC, but apparently it was burnt down by a fire, as things are usually burnt down by. It's not burnt down by sunburn. We don't actually know when this second one was built because Hadrian, the person who built it, decided to use the same inscription from the original temple, so it's basically a knockoff. But it's been done, it was probably around 126 AD, so it's probably been long enough now that no one really cares.
I'm now at the area Sacra. It's ridiculously old. It's supposedly built between the 4th and 2nd century BCE. It contains the Theatre of Pompeii and the Sacra of Pompeii, the latter of which is supposedly where Julius Caesar was murdered.
It was surprisingly discovered as recently as 1926 while constructing a building, a common story for Rome, like the eternally delayed construction of the underground. They keep finding archaeological marvels, which is great, but if you're just trying to get to work, it's going to get a bit annoying. By the time they finish the underground circuit, the first station will be an antique and they'll just have to scrap everything.
This is the Piazza de Santa Maria Maggiore. It's the biggest church in Rome, and it's where the Pope comes every month to pray.
I am a Franciscan.
Franciscan?
Yes.
So
Franciscan is a friar. born with Saint Francis of Assisi.
Really?
Yes.
So
We are we try to follow Francis of Assisi.
I see. How important is this church to you then?
This church is very important for also for our Franciscan because it's the Basilica of Mary, the Mother of God, the Mother of Jesus, and is the first basilica, the first church built by Pope. Inside there are some items from Bethlehem,
Really?
the place of the nativity of Jesus.
Wow. And the Pope comes every month, is it? Wow. Have you met the Pope?
You?
Have you met the Pope?
Sunday, maybe.
Good luck.
Maybe.
Thank you very much. Of course, you're at the biggest church in Rome. You have to interview a friar. Seems the done thing. With a bit of luck.
The current church, built in 1370, is the third to have existed here. The bell tower is the highest in all of Rome at 75 metres, and there are a number of great things to see inside, like this dead pope, at least I hope he is, and enough gold to make any dentist feral.
Here, there's supposed to be remains from inside the crib, from the nativity, from Jesus' actual crib.
And though all you can actually see is a box with a baby on it waving like he's just seen his Bessie May, it's actually pretty amazing to consider that it's probably around 2,000 years old. Although it did make me wonder, wasn't the Romans the people who murdered Jesus? It's a bit sadistic, isn't it? Sort of murdering someone and then stealing a bit of their crib to display. I'm sure it's fine. Stay tuned for more from the Catholic Church coming up, but for now let's check out what Trevi has to offer with one of the oldest water sources in Rome. This fountain dates back to ancient Roman times when the aqueduct was built. However, it wasn't until 1762 when this fountain design we see today was created.
This is the Trevi fountain. I'm sure in all the pictures you see it looks very empty, but if you look around it's absolutely full of people. It's actually surprisingly beautiful. It's prettier than I expected. The water looks super clear, and you can see people are all throwing money into the fountain. And you're supposed to make a wish, and then at the night they clear something like 3,000 euros out of the water, and it goes to a good cause, good charity.
Actually, I hate to be a pedant, but throwing a coin into the water, you're not actually supposed to make a wish, bloody idiot. It actually ensures that you'll one day come back to Rome, much like the next person I spoke to did.
And you're originally from Rome?
Yes, I grew up here.
What's your favourite parts of Rome?
Actually, this one.
Really?
The fountains, I think it is my favorite.
And why is that? Is it relaxing?
I love the water. Just the water gives me like a nice feeling, you know.
And I'm going to make a recommendation to you guys for some of the wheat, especially if you're gluten-free. They do amazing pizzas. It's called Pizza Trevi, and I think we're just here.
For those who have never seen a pizza before or haven't even heard of it, here's a brief demonstration of how it's made. I think that's blood, and then I assume that's cheese. Every pizza's different though, so it could be like heroin. That's definitely heroin. And I think he's going to put it in the oven. You got to smile first. Spin it round. That's the main part of pizza. And there we go.
The old, was it 30 days aged ham? I think it was older than that. It's amazing, even if it wasn't just gluten-free. You could just film me for the whole thing if you proper tiramisu in Rome, and it's gluten-free. Gluten-free. Oh, look at that. Custody goodness. Oh, only Batman.
That honestly was amazing. Next up, the Spanish Steps. I know, you're like, when are we going to the Colosseum? I want to see the Vatican. Well, just you wait, little one. Spanish Steps, pretty brilliant.
This is the Spanish Steps. It's built in the 1700s, and there's 135 steps that lead up to the Trinita del Monte Church, and there's also the Spanish Embassy, hence the name. Okay, let's slalom between all the tourists and get up these 135 steps. I'm not going to run, this isn't Rocky. Although he was Italian, wasn't he? Maybe this was where he trained. Like before the film, trained for the film. I think I love Rome. I think I might need to move here. Oh look, someone just got married. Or not married, engaged. If I can turn the camera around. What a beautiful place. Oh.
What a beautiful staircase. It's funny because the only time I ever take the stairs is when the lift's engaged. Hey! Look, honestly, I'm very sorry. I apologise to you and your entire family. And let's carry on, shall we? At the top of the stairs leads to the Piazza Trinita dei Monti and the Trinita dei Monti Church. But before you pop in and have a look around, you can peer over the edge to the Piazza di Spagna and take in the beautiful sight. We also saw this beautiful little mini, but they had to go, I assume they had some sort of Italian job. Again, very, very sorry. Excuse.
You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off!
The Trinita dei Monti Church was built in 1585, and though we don't know much about who built it, it has been suggested that the architect could have been a follower of Michelangelo. Turtle power. Inside are these brilliantly painted depictions of the Virgin Mary, this sculpture called the Deposition, and these candles. This guy tried to propose to several people, with no luck. I thought about it, but maybe next time.
Better stop being a cowboy. This is known as the Fatherland, and in the middle there is the altar of the Fatherland, and it was home to the last king of Rome, and all the statues are built by Michelangelo, who also lived around this square.
The monument was built in honour of Victor Emmanuel II, who was the first king of Italy. It's known locally as the typewriter or the wedding cake, and you're absolutely not allowed to sit on these steps, as I did without realising to film that last shot. You can go up there to catch a lift that takes you right up to the top and gives you some of the most amazing views in all of Rome. In fact, the place is so big that you can see most of the statues on the top from almost anywhere in Rome. As too can you see pretty much everything else, including the Colosseum, which was my next destination the day after, but that night I actually decided to join a small party. I say small, it was actually pretty massive, and amazing to see that right next to all this absolutely amazing history was this really modern party happening. It was actually the weekend of Pride, and it really felt like the whole of Rome had just descended on this one street to party for the night. I actually thought about going home and nearly did that night, but then sort of realised you're not going to get many opportunities to party in front of the Colosseum. And the more I stayed, the more I realised how lovely everybody was. Everyone was so welcoming. I actually think that's one of the main reasons to go to Rome, other than the history, the food, and almost everything else. I think the people are just so lovely and welcoming that I was just really, really glad I stayed. And editing this now, I don't think I've ever wanted to be back somewhere more than this. It's probably one of the best parties I've ever been to.
Hello, I'm at the Colosseum, the largest amphitheatre in the whole world.
It stands at a great height of 48 metres and is 4 stories tall, which back then would have been at least very high. The building at maximum capacity could have held 50,000 people, and it really takes a while for this sort of number to sink in, mainly because I'm only one person. It began construction sometime between 70 and 72 AD and opened nearly a decade later.
This is cool. Feels strange to have partied outside the Colosseum now and then be hungover the next day in the Colosseum. This is almost the first football stadium, if you will. It's like what all stadiums in the world have their origin in. But rather than football, it was grown men trying to kill each other. Same sort of thing. I think the most obvious thing you notice when you come here is the amount of doors. Obviously, we're all familiar with the shape, but when you walk around here, you really notice how many entrances there are. I think there's over 80 entrances, and then once you're in here, there's all arches, like it's completely accessible. So it makes you think, like, how do they even manage the tickets? I know they do today, but it turns out back then there was no entrance fee. The emperor would put on events for free. What a lovely bloke.
And in fact, when it first opened, the Emperor Titus celebrated with 100 days of gladiatorial games. It would also be known to host dramas, reenactments and public executions.
So I think this level here would have extended all the way out to the middle, and that's where they would have fought. But obviously that's sort of worn away and collapsed, and what you can see there is underground, and I think that's where the gladiators got ready. There are also trapdoors in the floor that you can see. For like really cool special effects.
Events at the Colosseum went on for hundreds of years, almost as long as it's taken me to realise that I really should pin that mic onto my t-shirt. But after the fall of the Roman Empire in 476 AD, interest in the event started to wane. Wayne wasn't really a fan of going to the Colosseum, because in the 5th century it was damaged by earthquakes and fell into neglect. A lot of it was also stolen, as you can see evidenced by the holes in the walls, where people would steal the iron clamps that help hold the stones together. By the 20th century, nearly 2/3 of the original building had been destroyed. Nevertheless, a restoration project began in the 1990s to repair the Colosseum, and it is now one of Rome's main attractions, hosting millions and millions and millions of visitors per year. Millions.
I'm currently in a place called Circus Maximus, and it's where they used to hold the chariot races. Literally exactly where I stand, they would have been racing round like bloody lunatics, I imagine.
Built in the 6th century BC, it was the first and the largest stadium of the whole Roman Empire and could accommodate over 150,000 spectators. Although Pliny the Elder claimed it was actually around 250,000, but it's more likely that he was a massive lying gobshite. This is from a man who used to tell stories of the manticore, a strange creature with a lion's body, the sting of a scorpion and the head of a man, and a bonassus that, as a defense mechanism would, and I quote, send forth its excrements sometimes to a distance of even 300 feet, the contact of which burns those who pursue the animal just like a kind of fire, which to me sounds like a load of flaming horseshit. The markets around the stadium also became the starting point for the Great Fire of Rome that happened in 64 AD. Before it was extinguished 9 days later, it would take 2/3 of Rome with it. Although considering it was 35 degrees the day I filmed this, it might as well still be going. The stadium was still in use after this, however. The last games we know of was in 549 AD.
But nowadays they use it for something slightly different. Even though it's a massive place of historical importance, they actually use it for rock concerts and other such events. If I show you the other direction there from the camera, you can see that they're dismantling a concert that happened 2 days ago by a much loved local boy called Vasco Rossi. I think I can also show you footage of him leaving his hotel to go to this concert, which was just total chance that we caught this the other day. So it's really nice to be here now and see them taking down this concert. And it's really cool to see them using historical monuments for such modern and cool purposes. So it's really cool to see.
To get to the Vatican, most people walk over the Ponte Sant'Angelo Bridge, which is a remarkably preserved structure built by the Emperor Hadrian in 134 AD. As you cross the River Tiber, there are 10 statues of angels towering above you, almost mocking you for having to use your own legs. This leads up to Castle Sant'Angelo, also the work of Hadrian. It was built between 123 and 139 AD as a mausoleum, intended as his final resting place. Although Hadrian's ashes would be buried there, he didn't actually get to see its completion as he died in 138 AD. I'm sorry to be the one to break the bad news to you. It was transformed in medieval times into a castle and was used by popes as a prison, which is kind of ironic. It's now a museum of military history, and once you pass it, you are greeted with a view of St. Peter's Basilica, the heart of the Vatican. Encircled by a 2-mile border with Italy, Vatican City is an independent city-state and country that covers just over 100 acres, so you could fit about 90,000 elephants in that space if you were wondering, but I wouldn't make any plans. We bought tickets to Vatican Museum online, which is where most people start, although they don't accept PayPal. They are very serious about security here though, and I'm not sure why. It's not like the Catholic Church has ever made any enemies or done anything bad before. Before. It's actually a fun fact that the Vatican has the highest crime rate per capita than any other country in the world. Although they did let me film inside, they actually took away my gimbal. I'm not quite sure why they only allowed bad footage inside. So yes, you want to film, that's fine. Only bad footage allowed though. And it's a shame because there were some amazing artifacts inside. The museum starts with Egyptian artifacts collected by emperors and popes that are extremely old, along with many great Roman art and artifacts, which are like facts but arty. The museum is almost an art piece in itself. There are some great views outside the window of the city and of the Vatican gardens. And the ceilings are so beautifully decorated that you may come out with a bad neck afterwards. And you can insert your own Pope joke here.
We're in the museum for the Vatican, and we're heading towards the Sistine Chapel. You've got to walk through the museum first. And look at this room. This is by far my favourite room. Absolutely breathtaking. I don't think I'm allowed to film in the Sistine Chapel though. Or we might try.
The chapel was built in the 1470s, but it wasn't until 1508 that Michelangelo started his fresco, Turtle Power. Despite being a renowned sculptor, he didn't actually think he was a good enough painter for the job and was worried that it might have even been a practical joke from his friends. But he couldn't refuse what turned out to be a very serious request from the Pope. So if you ever think you're not good enough to do something, take solace in the fact that one of the most renowned painters of all time doubted his ability. It's also well known that Michelangelo didn't pass any of his GCSEs and didn't even have a BTEC in art. The chapel is also where they vote for a new pope, though they haven't confirmed or denied the use of a golden buzzer. As you leave the chapel, you can see some items that belong to the Pope, such as the Pope's stash box, Pope's hammer and trowel. However, none of these are available in the gift shop, but you can buy like a small angel child or something. As you head out the museum down this spiral staircase, it leads you to St. Peter's Square, which is actually more of a circle. You get a great view of St. Peter's Basilica, as well as some lovely fountains, and also quite a sad sculpture of modern refugees, which is kind of powerful. And to be fair, the Catholic Church have been helping to resettle refugees in Afghanistan, and have been helping Ukrainians on the Polish border. Fair cop, innit? As we left to find food, we also came across some political graffiti about the war and in support of vaccines.
Patron saint of vaccines?
And then we found the restaurant we were looking for, Mama Eat Labs, which is entirely gluten-free. We had some amazing pasta and amazing gluten-free donuts.
If you're gluten-free, I think coming to Mama Eat Lab, which is just by the Vatican, is probably as important as seeing the Vatican. So that's it. Thank you so much for joining me on my brief journey to Rome. It's probably one of my favourite cities, I'm not going to lie. The atmosphere, the history, it's just fantastic. My only complaint, it's definitely not really a complaint, is there's just far too much stuff. Like I'm just walking home and here's a beautiful view for me to film the last goodbye on. And I'm beginning to realise that probably sums up Rome pretty well, that you're always going to feel like you missed out on something. There's just a piece of history on absolutely every corner. But I think that's just how it is, that I'm going to leave Rome sort of missing it and wishing I had more time to explore it a little more. I think you could probably stop on any corner and enjoy the food for a few hours. You could stop anywhere and explore some history. You can meet lovely people. The atmosphere everywhere is just really relaxed and lovely. The weather is fantastic. It's probably a little expensive, the food, but if you're willing to search, it doesn't mean you say you couldn't do it cheap. If you're a backpacker, you could definitely find somewhere. If you just want to eat food and be happy and where you are, it's going to cost money. But if you're willing to search, you can definitely find some cheap versions, and the food's stunning wherever. I haven't had a bad meal since I've been here. The only other suggestion I'd make is book tickets online, and it's a little complicated, so maybe don't leave it until you're here to do that, because it probably takes 20 minutes to find the right site, and you don't know if you want a tour guide, or it's a lot of work. So maybe book your tickets in advance, because if you just turn up on the day, there's going to be huge queues, and there's a high chance you'll get to the end of the queue and they'll say, sorry, no ticket. And that's fair enough. I think it's such a busy city. So book tickets online. You can also buy food here and not have to eat out all the time, but I really recommend that you do. But I think it's just one of my most favourite cities. It's just so varied and interesting, and there's something on every corner. So I'm definitely going to leave Rome feeling like I want to come back, which is a good sign for a city. And hopefully I can bring you with me again the next time I come. Thanks. I don't know why I want to do that. Ta-da!